Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the sound design workshop of Behind the Curtain. My name is Laura Zablit, and I work in the Arts Engagement Department of the Old Globe Theater in San Diego. Thank you so much for joining us for another workshop. This is a weekly live streamed theater production workshop series that's right here on our Facebook page, and this is our 4th episode. So thank you for being here. And be sure to check out our past workshops on our page where we talked about things such as set design, where I made my little mini model set right here. So these workshops are intended as introductions. So anyone can join at any time and get just a fun sense of what each theater design discipline is like. But are you somebody who wants to go deeper? Do you want more technical knowledge? Are you wondering what it could be like to pursue a career in theater production? Well, now we've created a pathway for continued learning and a direct way for you to access our theater production professionals so you can build your own network. I am so excited to announce the launch of the Advanced Behind the Curtain Technical Assistance Facebook group, which is where 7 leaders in our theater production department will post discussion questions and deeper information, and they'll answer any continuing questions that you have. So this is your opportunity to build your network of industry professionals and develop your relationship to theater production, even while in quarantine. So join. It's called Behind the Curtain Technical Assistance, and the link is in the caption to this video. I'm also so excited that Monday was our first Spanish episode of Behind the Curtain, Detrás del Telón, hosted by the amazing Valeria Vega and Clara Ricasa. They're going to be here every Monday at 3 p.m., so don't forget to invite your friends to join you for that also. So for today's workshop, we're going to explore the world of sound design. So how does sound help to tell a story? So let's you and I, right now, take a few seconds to be silent and listen to the sounds around us. What do you hear? Can you hear sounds from the room around you or anything from outside? And what does that say about the story of this moment right now where you and I are together doing this workshop? What does this tell about the story of your moment? For me, I hear some cars more in the distance. I hear the hum of the laptop and of some lighting equipment, but it's pretty quiet. And I think that does tell a little bit the story of isolation. There's not a whole lot of people talking, or there's not a people out and about right now. And I think that's really impactful to telling the story. So for you, please go ahead and share in the comments whatever sounds you hear right now, whether that's your stomach gurgling or a pet walking around on wood floors or whatever might help to tell the story of this moment for you. Share those sounds of your surroundings right now in the comments. And that's our check-in for today. We're counting that as our check-in. So as moving from there, we're going to be thinking about how powerfully sound can affect a story and learn about what sound design for theater is. Because if you were the sound designer for a professional theater production, what would that mean? What would you be doing? And what are some of the skills you would use? And how can you practice some of those skills right now in your home today? So today we're going to be hearing a bunch of really awesome sound examples, so keep your volume turned up real well. We'll also try out a sound design activity that you can do right now with basic household items. And I am so excited because we have a very special community partner joining us in a bit here as well. Rachel Pinuelas Morino of South Bay Community Services will be coming on for an activity and also to share about the incredible work that South Bay Community Services is doing right now to make sure that families in San Diego have food to eat during this time. And then at the very end of all this, we're going to answer any questions that you have. So drop those in the comment section at any time. So without further ado, I am honored to welcome our sound designer guest artist for today, Paul Peterson. Paul is the sound director here at the Old Globe, and he's been with the Old Globe for almost 26 years and has designed the sound for well over 100 productions. He has also freelanced across the country as a member of United Scenic Artists Local 829, and today he's going to lead us through what it means to create sound in the theater. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Laura, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you very much for coming and for preparing all of these awesome activities and examples that we have. I'm very grateful to have this workshop in our workshop series. So we have a ton of things that we want to talk about today, but before we go any further, could you please define sound for us? What is sound for theater specifically?
Sound for theater is an incredibly important element to any theatrical production. It basically encompasses most of the audible experience of the storytelling of the play, beyond the text, beyond the dialogue that you hear from the actors on stage. It can be music, it can be specific sound effects, and then sometimes in the case of like a musical or a place where you want to amplify or reinforce an actor's voice, it actually is putting microphones on and reinforcing those voices as well as part of the production. Silence can be a very powerful storytelling element as well. It doesn't always have to be making noise and playing music to set a tone in a play or a musical. Sound, it's so complex. It can be literal, psychological, and geographical, kind of all at the same time. Yeah. The sound of that's selected and played during a show can help set a mood, define a location, tell you what time of day it is, or even tell you what the time period is. It supports the action on stage, it contrasts it. It's all really boils down to what the designer and the director decide is the story they're trying to tell on stage, and supporting it with a soundscape.
That's neat. I didn't think about that before, but sound could tell the story of a time period. If you hear a bunch of horses clopping in a street, it's not taking place in 2020. Or if you hear the sound of general conversation and hubbub in a supermarket, but the language that hubbub might be in could also tell geographically where people are, which is so cool. And I know that there's a lot of technical equipment that goes into sound design, and we can't go into the actual Old Globe sound booth right now, but could you show us some demonstrations of what you mean with what we have available?
Yeah, we can go into that. Now, in the past, sound designers used to travel around with large, vast libraries on CDs and tapes and vinyl, and you'd see us lugging huge suitcases into our rehearsals. Fortunately, now technology's advanced, and hard drives has gotten so cheap that most of us can carry all of our sound effects, music libraries, and then our music. I'm sorry, when I say music libraries, I mean our virtual instrument music libraries, and then and then our physical music itself. We can put it all on a hard drive. The problem is we're kind of in a pandemic right now, and I'm locked out of the theater, so I don't have my hard drive. So I'm going to go around the house with my portable recorder. Folks at home, if you want to try recording stuff at home, almost every phone now has an app like a voice memo that will let you record these sounds. So I've spent a week or two going around my house and capturing some sounds, and then I'm going to import them and manipulate them in my computer using Pro Tools, which is a digital audio workstation, and play them back for you.
Okay, and a quick note that if anybody has questions about any of the software that Paul is talking about or any of the resources, those are all going to be in the Behind the Curtain Technical Assistance Facebook group. The link is in our comments, so be sure to check that out when you hear things like Pro Tools. Okay, so Paul, what's the first example that we're going to hear?
All right, so anybody that knows me knows I'm really into bulldogs. I've got 2 of them, and if anybody's been around them a lot, they know they snore all the time. So here's a recording of my little boy Dexter sawing away the other night. Play it. Yep. Welcome to my world.
He sounds like a delicate flower.
Oh yeah, he's a gem. Okay, so that's what we call a dry sound, meaning it hasn't been manipulated, processed, put through any effects. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop Dexter down in pitch to see what that sounds like. See how it sounds a little bit lower, like you started on a single note on a piano and then maybe went down 8 or 9 keys and it sounds lower. That's what dropping it down in pitch means.
Okay.
It's interesting, but I kind of want to make this a little scarier. I want to make it scarier. So I'm going to add some reverb and a distortion filter to the sound.
Okay, so reverb and distortion filter, they're familiar terms, but what do they mean exactly?
Okay, reverb or reverberation is a psychological effect that happens when your ear hears the same sound being reflected off various surfaces like walls or floors, ceilings, objects. And what that does is it causes the sound to arrive at your ear multiple times at varying varying lengths. And the effect it creates kind of adds a tail to the sound, which is a little bit of, we like to add a little bit of character and liveliness to the sound. For a good example of this would be like listening to a priest talk in a nice big chapel. You know, it's got that long sound at the end of it. If there's too much, you're going to muddy up the sound. If those reverberations take too long, the space in between them to get to your ear, then your brain starts to interpret it as an echo, which anybody who's shouted into the Grand Canyon is familiar with that. You shout something and it comes back maybe a second or two later. And that's just because the brain is processing sounds that are further apart. So that's the difference between reverberation and echo.
Oh, cool. Okay, so reverb sounds kind of familiar from music, and from when people go on stage, there's usually that kind of extra fun layer to it. And then an echo is what happens when the reverb gets so kind of drawn out. I don't know if that would be the right way to say it, but so drawn out that it starts to sound like an actually different sound. If I say echo, 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 I hear actual echo many times.
Sounds like it sounds like a repetition.
Okay, cool. So you're going to add reverb and echo to Dexter the dog.
Now, I was going to add reverb and a distortion filter. And a distortion filter is very similar to what a electric guitarist would plug their instruments into, and it gives them the ability to add fuzz, overdrive, change EQ, and it can even add reverb and distortion as well. And so I'm gonna add a little distortion to poor Dexter here and see what we get. All right, let's hear what I turned Dexter into.
Okay, that sounds more menacing. That sounds definitely more menacing. I feel like,
sorry,
go ahead.
What do you think that sounds like?
You know, I feel like if I didn't know that was a dog, I would not have thought that was a dog. I would have thought that was probably a dragon, and a dragon in a cave, a very large cave somewhere.
Right, so you see how the reverb sort of adds a sense of space to the sound. And then pitching it down and adding a little bit of distortion just altered the sound enough to make it sound something not like a dog.
That's cool that you started with something that was that's a sound that we could be familiar with and turned it into something totally different just by making these specific adjustments to the sound.
Right. Okay, so now I think we're going to try this in reverse, and we're going to play a game with everybody on Facebook Live in the comments section. We're going to take some sounds that I found around the house, put through some various processing, and we're going to see if you can guess them. I have to give a shout out to my colleagues over at the TSDCA, which is the Theatrical Sound Designers and Composers Association. We've been playing this game with each other for a couple of weeks, and as I was starting to look for activities, I was already going to be doing constructing sounds, and then I was like, hey, deconstructing sounds, that's a great idea. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you have fun with this.
Awesome. Okay, so then it's game time. So if you're watching at home, you and I will work together, and I need you to write your answers in the comments so that I can receive those and get some help. But what Paul is going to do is he's going to share with us a sound that has been heavily manipulated so that it sounds like something different than what it actually started out as. And then you and I will try to guess what that sound actually was in that recording that was something around Paul's house. And we'll try it in layers. So we'll start with this fully finished edited sound and then strip off layers of different manipulations to see what's left at the bottom. So if you have a guess about what that original sound was, please put it in the comments, and definitely turn the volume up on your computer so that we can make sure to hear them all. All right, ready? Let's go.
Okay, guys, so here's the first sound.
Ooh, could we hear that one more time? Okay, so it definitely, the echoey nature of it kind of makes me think that it's something in a big space, like maybe a warehouse, like one of those big rolling doors that opens up a big empty warehouse with not a whole lot of things in it. Or I could almost think that it's one of those rolling garage doors, you know, that you close a storefront at the end of the day, hearing it kind of moving and then slamming shut. and then the echo or the reverberation. Now I'm thinking about what those words mean and which
Right.
one I'm using at a different time.
Yeah. So I believe we actually jumped a sound forward. So if we could roll back in mission control and play Q8. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the original, and now we're going to play the sound with some of the effects removed. See if any are we getting any guesses here, Laura?
We wanted to hear it again,
we can
and
play
we heard
it
again. So I think we're all good. Let's hear it. Let's hear it with one layer stripped away.
Okay.
And folks at home are mentioning that they think that this is a desk drawer or a kitchen drawer. That now that we heard it with one more layer stripped away, I'm thinking that it does seem smaller. It does seem maybe not a whole warehouse or a whole garage door. Could we hear it one more time before we move on? And also Dave Buis, our prop designer at home, is mentioning that he thinks it's dragging a wooden box. So that's different than the drawer theme we've got going on. Oh, I trust Dave a lot. So I think that I'm gonna say that I think the sound is originally dragging something, also dragging a wooden box. Okay, final answer.
Okay, wooden box. That sound is the sound of the shelf and tray sliding out of my toaster oven.
Oh, and then closing at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So let's hear the original. Let's please play the sound dry. And now does it sound like an oven shelf?
A little bit. It's a little bit faint on my end, but I was starting to hear it as we were taking away the layers. Can we hear it one more time?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that sounds like a toaster oven now.
So now you hear sort of the resonance of the thin metal and everything as it's scraping.
Yeah. So good job at home, folks. You're saying drawers gliding, opening a drawer, all that stuff.
Pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, so I basically dropped it down in pitch and time stretched it, where I took the sound and made it longer. What I was going for was to try to make it sound like one of those prison cell sliding doors. You hear that shh, and then a big clank and an echo at the end. So it sort of sounded like we were in a big empty prison.
That's interesting. So making things sound lower gives a sense of scale, or can increase a sense of size of something.
Yeah, it certainly can. And also to make this sound like it wasn't some rinky-dink little Black & Decker shelf, using equalization. I took a lot of the high frequencies out of it and then boosted everything in the low to try to give it an oomph.
Okay, so when you say equalization or EQ, you mean kind of taking the different levels of sound in a sound that could be interpreted as pitch, like the things that sound higher and the things that sound lower, and playing with the volume of each of those levels to distribute or distort how we perceive it?
Yeah, the easiest way to describe this is if you're in your car and you go into your settings and you've got bass, mid, high, and you can adjust them to your liking. We're able to do that, but we're able to select individual frequencies or a range of frequencies and boost and lower them or completely cut them out to help us shape the sound.
That's so cool. Okay, so that's EQ or equalization. Yeah,
correct. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, good job, folks at home. Thank you very much for supporting. Let's go into round 2. Everybody ready? Got their sound up? Okay, what's the second sound for this?
Okay, let's play this is the sound fully processed.
Okay. Did I miss it?
I didn't hear it.
I'm on my computer speakers, which may be the culprit, but maybe people at home are able to hear it right now.
I heard part of it. Can we play that back one more time? There we go.
Okay, yeah. Still soft, but I got it. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Anybody at home have any guesses? I feel I don't think it's a motorcycle, but I feel that, the sound of a motorcycle revving up or something churning or in that way. It reminds me of that, although I don't know that it is that.
All right. Are you trying to get me in trouble by saying I ride a motorcycle?
You ride a motorcycle?
My mother might be watching this, so.
Oh,
if I hear about this from her.
Okay. I take full responsibility.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay. Paul does not ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we getting any responses from online?
Not hearing quite yet, but also there's a little bit of a lag in the live stream. So maybe let's hear the next level. Let's hear it with a little bit of distortion taken away.
Yeah, so let's play the next cue.
Okay. Still, it sounds like a motorcycle. But a soft, low motorcycle. Sorry, Paul, I keep throwing you under the bus. But okay, folks who are watching are saying maybe it sounds like shoes dropping on the floor.
Ooh,
that would be kind of interesting to hear the kind of patter as they fall, or a marble against a wall.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Oh, that could totally be it. A marble against anything. Like if I had a big cutting board and I was rolling it from side to side, even. Oh, this is hard.
All right. Shall I tell you what it is?
Yeah, but I'm going to go. My final answer is marble against a wall. I think
that was a good one.
Really good. Okay,
well, actually, we are going back to the animal world with this one. This is a recording of my cat, Elvis, purring. So you can kind of get an idea now what life is like in the Peterson household during shelter in place with all of our animals. So why don't you go ahead and play that sound?
Aww.
Yeah, that's just him purring and licking, and you can actually hear some birds in the background because I couldn't.
Yeah, that sounds very peaceful. Which is so funny.
I couldn't get the birds to shut up. So.
Well, you were able to shut them up in post.
I was able to fix it. I was able to fix it in post.
That is really funny though, how now hearing the dry sound of a cat purring with birds chirping, already that tells me a totally different story. I see the sun shining, I see trees and leaves moving gently in the breeze, which is very different than the first one that we got.
Right. And
where I was thinking it's a motorcycle.
Yeah, and that's how I got you, because one of the things I actually did with this, and it might translate differently into people's computers depending on how they're set up or what sound system they're into, is I took the sound and I panned it from left to right, so it actually sounds like something flying by or crossing by you, and I think that's what sucked you into thinking it was a motorcycle.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's right. The location, where I am in relation to an object is going to change the way that it sounds.
Exactly.
And
so that's another way we can play with sound is through motion.
Cool. Well, I wasn't the only one. People were thinking maybe it was an engine revving online. So that's really interesting to see how even when we don't have access to the sound booth and to all your hard drives, there's still so many ways to really dramatically change and shape a story with sound.
Yeah.
So when it comes to theater, if we want to level up and build something for a specific moment on stage, how could we do that?
All right, so I'm going to build some sound, or what we would call cues, for a theatrical event. I've chosen a scene in Shakespeare's play Hamlet. It's the moment when the ghost of Hamlet's father appears to him for the first time and tells him a bunch of horrible things.
Eerie.
Yeah. So it's in the middle of the night, kind of scary. And keeping with the theme of this workshop, I'm going to be playing the ghosts and Hamlet myself, as well as creating all the effects. Okay, so let's start. A ghost on stage is a pretty traumatic event, so maybe I want to add some weight or tension to it, maybe make it sound a little ominous or foreboding, like add a low sustained drone or a tone, very, very common in cinema and TV. Like I said, I don't have any of my musical instrument libraries, so I went around trying to find something that I could use to make noise. So I found a paper towel. I'm sure we've all got plenty of these now, if we're not, if we're hoarding properly, like everyone should be. No, that was a joke. So I'm kind of using it like a trumpet or a didgeridoo.
Doesn't sound very scary yet, I will tell you.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like something else. Okay, so that's a start. I'm going to take this sound and I'm going to isolate. I'm going to pitch it down a little bit to take it down in tonality, and add some EQ and reverb to it to try and get rid of the raspiness of me blowing into it, the fluttery. And then I'm going to just take a small section that I like, and then I'm going to do what's called a loop, where you play the same section over and over and over and over again. And with the reverb and the EQ, what I get is kind of this really interesting modulating low pad thing. So if you want to play that.
I'm not hearing it quite yet. Are you?
I heard it. Yeah.
You did hear it? Okay. Then it must just be on my end.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't sound like a paper towel roll at all. Now, so now we've kind of got this low tone. Maybe I want to add something just for a little extra punctuation or a little motion in the cue. So I want a drum, but I don't got any drums at home. So I do have Tupperware. So that sounds kind of flat and plasticky. So I'm going to take that and EQ it, pitch it again, and add a little bit of reverb. And the sound that comes out of it sounds completely different. It's kind of sounds like this distant drum beating. If you want to go ahead and play that. Can you play that once more, please? Yeah, there we go.
I got it.
Okay, so I've got two elements ready to go now for the ghost that are going to kind of underscore him as he's saying a few lines to Hamlet. I want to do something to introduce him though, like something that calls attention to the ghost's appearance because it might be sudden and kind of scary. I mean, sometimes you use something like thunder. I'm a big fan of doing scraping sounds. So what I did is I took a coin and a cookie sheet and just slowly scraped the cookie sheet with the coin. And then took the sound and actually reversed it, so it you don't the tail end of the tail are now reversed, EQ'd and put it through a little bit of reverb, and this is what it sounds like. So now you've kind of got something that might kind of just do a quick transition to the ghost appearing, and maybe something flashes with the lights as you hear this sound before the scene starts. It's just kind of a quick little transitional piece.
It's a different sound. How did you know? How do you know when you have a sound like a coin scraping on a cookie sheet that what you need to do is reverse the sound or layer these things on? Does that just come with experience? How you know what kind of effect that's going to have?
It's experience and a lot of experimentation. I threw out there's a lot of sounds from my house that hit the cutting room floor on this one: fridges and water coolers and light switches and the tone made by the bathroom fan. There's a lot of trial and error. But also experience and kind of knowing what you're looking for ahead of time goes a long way to locking in on the final sound.
Well, that scraping sound does add a lot of drama. So then after this is the dialogue, yeah? Right.
So now I'm ready to edit everything together. It's going to play underneath the action on stage. And like I said, I'm not able to, I don't have actors here because I'm sequestered in my house. So I'm going to record the dialogue of both the ghost and Hamlet myself. We're only going to do about 3 or 4 lines or to keep it short. Full disclaimer, I'm a terrible actor. So, Mr. Shakespeare, I'm very, very sorry for what's about to transpire.
I'm sure he forgives you. I'm sure he's glad to have his work shared on Facebook Live, you know.
And in a live situation, if I were on stage, I would typically, if we did have an actor playing the ghost and it wasn't just some big disembodied voice coming from the heavens, we would probably put a mic on the actor if there wasn't already one, and add some effects to it, and maybe make the ghost voice move behind the audience or around or above. So I'm going to do that to my voice with reverb and what's called a chorus, which takes my voice and amplifies it 3 or 4 different times, or replicates it 3 or 4 different times at different pitches, and also at different times in relationship to my voice, to kind of make it sound thicker, like I might be having 3 or 4 people singing together at the same time. It just adds an interesting character to the voice. All right, so now that I've got all the sounds I need, I'm going to layer them together in Pro Tools. If you want to put that slide up.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Pro Tools, a very standard DAW.
What's a DAW?
digital audio workstation. Now we've got 2 slides there. The one that, it should be on top, but it's the one that's up above is the edit section where I can actually physically see the sounds, chop them up and move them around. If something wants to come before or after another sound, I'll just grab it and move it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mission Control. And then below that is the mix section of the session that I've been working on, where I have physical, or I have faders that are representative of like what's on a soundboard, which we're hopefully going to talk about later, where I can control all of the volumes and some of the routing of this sound. Okay. You know, while I'm using Pro Tools, there's a bunch of other alternatives out there. GarageBand comes for free with most Macs these days. If you're in the Windows world, FL Studio is very popular, and there's another free piece of software called Audacity. These will all be up in the links that we're going to put up on the technical assistance page later. Okay, so now you've seen how I've kind of edited it all together. Let's hear the final product. Whither wilt thou lead me? Speak, I'll go no further. Mark me. I will. My hour is almost come, when I to sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. Alas, poor ghost! Pity me not, but lend thy serious hearing to what I shall unfold. Okay.
That was so cool, and it was so cool how I could tell which character was which based on what you did to those voices. Even though they were both you, there was one that was very clearly the ghost and very clearly a mortal human.
Okay, great. Okay, so there you go. I've constructed a bunch of variety of sounds using household objects and demonstrated how we can manipulate them, and talked a little bit about how sound design can, enhance, impact a scene.
Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit of a case study of in one moment how you built sound to tell that story. But we do want to hear a little bit about when you get assigned to a show. What is that whole process like? And we've got about 10 minutes to do it.
Okay.
So what's the first step? How do you start?
Okay, well, it all starts with the script. That's what we all say. It starts with the script, and then discussions with the director and the other design team about what the show is, what the story wants to be, what the aesthetic is. And then once I have a pretty good idea of what we're looking to do, I'll dive back into the script and start adding cues in, sound effects. Sometimes it's really sometimes the playwright gives you very specific instructions. They'll write in car approaches, door opens, close, so you know that's the cue you're probably going to play. Other places like transitions between scenes, you're going to want some music there. Usually the music wants to highlight what happened at the end of the scene and then also introduce the next scene that's coming. And then I'll start thinking about some environments. Are we in a forest at night? Maybe what do we do? Some crickets and maybe some light wind and some gentle trees rustling, an owl. If it's supposed to be a little ominous or darker, maybe we had some wolves or something, or another little tone to it. And so I'll take.
You're using your imagination a whole lot in that moment.
Very much so. And so then I'm going to take all these ideas, jot them down on paper or a spreadsheet that I call a score. And if we want to put that slide up. Yeah, so this basically just gives me the information of the page, what it is, a description of what it is, and then my notes on the other side, like, hey, let's take the music from this CD, track 5, or the director doesn't like this, or needs to be tenser or somber or not beautiful enough, and I'll just add those ideas or those notes in as I go, and that's just a way for me to keep track of where I am in the design process. And eventually this document will form the sound plot, which is a document that I'll hand off to the stage manager, which has all the information for them to be able to call the show. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I'm ready to move into the rehearsal room, and depending on the show, depending on the actor or the director and the theaters, you can quite often get into the rehearsal halls and start playing with music and sound effects while the actors are working. And it's an incredibly useful tool to see your work before it gets on stage, to kind of get an idea and gauge if it's working, if it's conflicting with what's going on stage, if you need to maybe make something longer or shorter to underscore a scene or to match a dance that the choreographer wants to put on. So you typically spend three to four weeks, depending on how much rehearsal time you have, in these rehearsal halls as much as you can, working on the show. And then also at some point, I'm going to begin working on the technical side of sound design, the reinforcement side, which is basically designing the system that's going to play back all of your music and sound effects. And if you're using, live microphones, on the actors and on instruments, particularly in a musical, I'm going to draw out the speakers in the theater and on stage. And this would, let's show that picture.
The speakers.
Yeah. So this is a cutaway picture of the proscenium of the Old Globe with our typical speaker plot laid out. You can see kind of three sections. There's the three speakers in the center, which we call the center, and then there's speakers off to the sides, the left and the right. Now, in addition to doing this, what I'll also do is I want to check the coverage of these speakers to make sure that all the audience members are actually fitting within the working parameters of these speakers. They all have different angles that they project their sound at. And as you can see here, I'm able to kind of predict where my three speakers in the center are going to be hitting all three of my audiences fairly evenly. And also sometimes where the speakers might start overlapping and you might start to get some weird interactions between the speakers. And then so the next thing I'll probably do is come up with a signal flow, which is basically taking all of the inputs from the start of the show, whether it be stuff coming out of QLab, which is a playback computer, or instruments on the actors, or mics on the instruments. I just said instruments on the actors, didn't I? All your microphones, and it's just a visual diagram that shows how the signal transitions from one piece of equipment to the next, and then all of the different parts of your sound system. And this is really useful for the theater staff to know what they're going to be putting together, how it's all going to interconnect, and in some cases, how many cables of each type they're going to need.
It's amazing that there's so much detail, and it's I know that we're kind of moving quickly through it now, but if anybody's interested in diving into more of the technical stuff of any of this, please join the Behind the Curtain Technical Assistance Facebook group, link in the caption of this video to go even more deeply into it.
Yeah, the level of detail is very important because you're normally not given a lot of time to put these shows together. A show closes and you maybe have a week or two, if you're lucky, to load the next sound system, or load the next show in. And if you're loading in a completely new reinforcement system, you want everything planned out well ahead of time. So we spend a lot of time thinking a lot of this stuff out so that we're not holding up the theater crew once they get in.
So then the next step, we're going to take a look at some equipment, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to focus on this on the soundboard, which is kind of the brains of the system. There we go. That's a picture of a Digico SD10T, which is the soundboard we use in the Old Globe and out on our festival show with the Shakespeare's. The T at the end stands for theater, which is a special software package that's been added to this console that addresses a lot of the challenges that come from mixing live theater and musical theater. Okay, and so now we're going to look at just a quick shot of the input section. And basically what a soundboard does is it takes all your multiple inputs, as I already said, microphones, instruments, actors, mics, playback devices for computers, signals from effects process, offboard, or remote effects processing, brings them all together, and then ties them to your outputs, which is where going out to almost all your speakers or your monitors or recording devices. And if you look at this all these vertical sections here, each one of these represents a channel, and a channel can be a single input, or in some places you can gang 2 or 3 inputs to a single channel. And as the audio basically travels from top to bottom, and it gives the designer the ability to change the volume, change the EQ and shape the sound, add some things like compression that can help knock down really loud sounds. And then you get into the routing section, which drives which is how you send the sound to all your different individual speakers. And then at the bottom is the fader section, which is a graphical representation of the actual physical faders on the soundboard, which the engineer is going to be manipulating during the show to raise and lower the volumes and keep everything sounding exactly as the designer sets it.
So for example, if there was an actor playing a ghost on stage, like you showed us, they might have one channel, they might be one of these columns, and then all the different distortions would be indicated as you move down through. And then if the ghost is supposed to be the sound is supposed to be coming from the back of the theater to sound more creepy, that also is specified in here, right? You can kind of choose where the output is.
More or less, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then you're able to, if the ghost is supposed to sound normal, and then in the neck, all of a sudden swell out into the house, you can automate things, because these consoles now are basically just giant computers. With a single press of a button, the settings will change internally, and all of a sudden your sound will shift out. So there's a lot of creative things you can do with the mixing consoles these days.
And I know that people can learn more specifically about what a soundboard does in the technical assistance group, but what's the basic purpose of a soundboard?
Well, like I said before, it basically takes all the input signals and allows you to manipulate them and control the volumes to all the different output sources that you're going to have, like speakers on stage or speakers in the house, monitors, recording devices, etc.
Cool. So if you have any questions at home about anything you're hearing so far, don't forget to drop those questions in the comment section so that Paul can answer them at the end of this workshop. But now it's time for our sound design activity. So you at home and I are going to try our hand at creating our own soundscapes with household items with Paul's help. And I am truly honored, because now it's time to welcome our special guest for today. So South Bay Community Services is one of our incredible, long-standing community partners and collaborating theater makers. They all the time do incredible work investing in the South Bay community, but right now specifically, they're working overtime to provide free food for families during this pandemic. And I can't say enough about South Bay Community Services, and especially about our guest who is out on the front lines of this pandemic, diving in for her community. So folks at home, please put your emoji clapping hands together for our special guest, Rachel Pinuelas Morino. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to have you here. Rachel, this is Paul. Paul, this is Rachel.
Hey, Paul.
So Rachel, could you share a little bit about what you're doing right now and how this pandemic is affecting the South Bay community?
Sure. So South Bay Community Services has been around for over 70 years in San Diego. And right now, although our business looks a little differently, we're still here, committed to the community, making sure that everyone is safe, providing with the resources, of course, that are more needed in this moment. During the pandemic, we have actually increased our capacity in our shelters, in our transitional living programs with our foster youth, our homeless care out in the field, as well as making sure that we have preventative, our domestic violence and other preventative areas open for our resources also, and to provide our community, like mental health and domestic violence. And so some of the other areas are distant learning. We've really been able to engage our community through distant learning like this, virtual portals like this. And so we're really busy out in the community, especially in the food distribution sites. So providing nutrition and fresh produce to our community is very important. And we've actually impacted and increased our capacity by 500%, providing, dry fruit, stuff like this, grains and rice that are nutritious, as well as the produce. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if anybody's watching at home and you have any words of thanks that you would like to share with the South Bay Community Services team, write those in the comments now, and we'll share them with Rachel in just a minute. Thank you so much, Rachel, for your work. We're thinking of you, and thank you for joining us to do a little bit of theater in this
yes.
strange time. So let's get started. So here in San Diego right now, all of our beautiful beaches are closed, unfortunately, and most of our parks are closed also. So a lot of us are missing nature in our beautiful city. So Paul is going to help us transport ourselves into another place while respecting the community effort of social distancing. So now we need to get some materials from around the house to see what we can use. So if you have at home a metal takeout container, right, Paul, that might be the best thing.
Metal's best.
If you're like me and you just got a Tupperware, round one is the best.
Or if you got the plastic round ones, because I know we're all using Grubhub these days.
Yep. Yeah. And we need a handful of grains, whether it's rice.
So some grains, rice. I am going to be using Israeli couscous because it's nice, small, and hard. Dried peas will also work, or frozen peas. And so we're gonna put them in our device. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some exercises in what's called Foley sounds using household objects. And Foley is a term that was originally started in the film industry, where recording engineers would create sound effects to be laid over in the movies that actually the whatever the object was that created the sound had no relationship at all to what the sound was supposed to be in the movie. So a couple of great examples are like a bone break. They would sit there and they would break celery stalks, and then you hear that in the action film, and it sounds like a break. A punch might be somebody beating on a slab of meat, or you get the wetness and the thickness of it. Walking on snow. I mean, this is Southern California. We don't get a lot of snow. How are you going to record that? Well, they found you can take like a pillowcase and fill it with cornstarch, and as you step on it, you kind of get that little squeaky, crunchy sound. And it's a big part even in modern films today. There's a lot of work done, film, TV, radio. A lot of work is still done on the Foley stages these days. So what we're going to do using Foley, like Laura said, we can't go to the beach. So we're going to recreate the sound of waves and maybe a small campfire. Okay.
So if you're at home, if you want to, you could use a voice memo app or some sort of recording app if you want to save the sounds that you're making. But what I would like to suggest is if you have WhatsApp on your phone, and Rachel and I are going to pull up our WhatsApps, you know how you can do those little voice memos so you can send somebody a sound? I thought that would be a really fun way to, as we're recreating the feeling of being at the beach, being able to send that to someone we care about, to just share that feeling of ocean waves, or share that feeling of a campfire. So Rachel and I, when we're doing these sounds, we'll share them with each other on WhatsApp to see how it turns out. Okay, so we're going to start with the sound of a beautiful San Diego beach, right, Paul? Okay, so what's the first step?
Yeah, so the first activity we're going to do is at home is create the sound. I just sort of Tupperware open. Is create the sound of waves on a beach. Now, this is inspired by an actual musical instrument that's called an ocean drum, which is just a flat drum with a drum head on one side and then a mylar membrane on the other, and it's filled with a bunch of ball bearings. And as you slowly tilt it back and forth, it really does sound like ocean waves. All right, so as we said, we're going to do this at home. Couscous, grain, anything else that's like circular and hard, dried peas, and there we go. A circular takeout plate I find to be best. The metal sort of helps resonate the sound. And as you slowly rotate.
Oh, that does sound like water.
And I can vary it so it goes slow and then fast. It takes a little bit of practice. So.
Oh, our beautiful ocean waves.
Yep. We'll be able to see them.
Go ahead.
We'll be able to see them soon, hopefully, again, experience them.
Yeah. We'll get to experience them today because we got these sounds going on. Rachel, do you want to send me your sound on WhatsApp? Yeah. And then I'll play it on this end and see how it is.
Sure, I'll send it down.
So we'll be very quiet so that you don't record the sound of us talking also.
Okay, done.
Okay, let's see if I got it. Oh, I received it. Okay. I'm going to try to put it up to the speaker so that people can hear it. Let's see.
Kind of T-Rex.
Yeah. I think
Zoom like it's on a tide pool, you know?
Yeah,
like
Zoom is adding some interesting effects to us that we have no control over.
That's awesome, though. Thank you for sharing your beach with me, Rachel. Okay, so the next one, I didn't already mention what we need to have, but if you have cellophane, grab that, right, Paul? But I don't have cellophane.
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to create the sound of a small crackling fire. We're not doing an inferno. We're not burning down a house. So to do this, Foley artists will typically use some cellophane. The thicker the better. Saran wrap might work. It's a little thin, or plastic bags are also good and crinkly. I'm using some cellophane that was wrapped around a box. That anything that gets delivered these days has these boxes wrapped in cellophane. This happened to be a box of jewel cases for CDRs. Anybody remember those? Yeah. Okay, so you take the cellophane, ball it up in your hand a little bit, and then slowly crinkle it. And I find if you close your eyes, so you don't really see that you're using cellophane, it helps sell the sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's funny. I never would have thought that plastic could sound romantic in the way that a campfire with a whole bunch of people and s'mores would, but it does help, despite feeling a little bit silly, just romantically holding up a plastic bag next to my face and closing my eyes. Okay, so I'll record the sound of a campfire for you, Rachel, and I'm gonna send it to you with wishes of campfires in the future. Okay, I sent it.
Okay. Let me turn it up.
That's fantastic.
That sounds
a lot
great.
of fire.
Yeah, you did an inferno.
Sorry, I was trying so hard to be gentle, but I'm glad it worked out. Okay, well, this was so fun. And do we have a third Foley sound, Paul, or what's the next?
No, we don't. I think it's everybody on Facebook's Live's turn. Go ahead and maybe look around, see what you've got in your house, and put things in the put your ideas in the comments.
Awesome. So yeah, think about what you want to do. Think outside of the box, as Paul has helped us to do this whole time, to see what other sounds we could make. And we're just going to real quick. We have a comment that I want to share with you, Rachel. Somebody says, "Thank you. And how can we best support South Bay Community Services right now?"
Wow, well, that's really great. I think for us right now, we really are all about making sure that the community stays safe and healthy. Of course, we always accept donations or anything in that matter. We have our website up at southbaycommunityservices.org. If there's anything in the resources or information that you need now, we also have a highlighted in red up top at our website, a COVID-19, where some of our resources that have kind of been disrupted for the moment, but are ongoing. Anybody that needs additional resources can find it there.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your work and for sharing a few minutes with us, for sharing the sound of your ocean. Thank you so much for coming. It was so nice to get to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Just stay home, stay safe, and be well. Thanks.
Thank you. Good luck out there. We hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that was so awesome. I'm so glad we got to have Rachel join us for that. And so now we're almost to the end. So Paul, it's just time to take some questions from the comments section. So we've got a few. First question is, knowing what type of sound the director wants, do you ever think about the sound from the original form to a very different form? For example, oh, I'll record my toaster oven and I will make it sound like something scary.
It depends. Yeah, it all depends on what I have readily available at my fingertips with the pre-recorded sound effects. Sometimes they're going to be appropriate, sometimes they're not, and that's when I will start to dig in and do my own recordings, whether it be in the studio, out in the field, or as we did today in my house. I've done some shows where the whole premise of the show is everything is done via Foley sounds, sometimes recorded, but actually more times than not live. And those are the fun ones to do because you spend a lot of time going around finding objects to make some of these off the wall sounds.
That's so cool. That adds another element, the live element of theater that we love so much to that. That's so awesome.
Right.
So another question is, what advice would you have for middle schoolers who are interested in learning about careers in sound? At the school where I teach, they have started to play with QLab for simple projects.
Well, QLab, and we're going to put a link to that on the technical assistance page, is a great, powerful piece of software for theatrical playback. It's used everywhere from community theater up to the biggest shows on Broadway. and it was developed with theatrical sound designers in mind. I would say if you're looking for good career advice, start bugging people at your high school or middle school and saying, hey, I want to design the sound. More often than not, there's not really a set sound program, and they're always willing and eager to see somebody who's wants to step up and start playing with a lot of the technology and software that we have to put these shows on. Yeah.
I love that spirit of just getting to reach out and connect directly with somebody who's doing it as a pathway, not to plug the technical assistance group again, but to plug it again. Yeah. That is what that pathway is for people to interface with industry professionals and build that relationship and build that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited that we're starting this. I mean, I have a long relationship with quite a few high schools, primarily arts high schools here in town, where I've been mentoring the kids in things such as QLab and building cues in DAWs like Pro Tools and Garage Bands, and then even designing and mixing musicals. So reach out, just to your professional theater company and see if there's a job shadow opportunity. We do this every once in a while, where we'll allow a young student to come in and just kind of hang out with us and talk to the designers and the crews and just observe to see how things are done at a large regional theater. And we're very happy to accommodate those requests.
Yeah,
in all departments, not just sound.
Yeah. And we're opening our doors, even in quarantine. So the last question that we have for you is, how does sound mixing on a musical work versus sound on an unamplified play?
Ooh. Sound on an unamplified play is typically just going to be playback from a device like a QLab, or in the past CD players. There might be a live musician playing on stage. So there's not going to be a lot of hands-on mixing in an unamplified play. It's mainly just going to be playback, where all of the volume changes and the mixing and the moving of the sounds is actually really not handled within the soundboard. It's handled within the QLab software or whatever other playback device you're choosing to use. On a musical, it's a very complicated process of mixing. If you watch, we'll put a link up on the assistance page of a recent YouTube interview of Hamilton, the guy that mixes Hamilton up in San Francisco, and they talk about when you're mixing, you really only want to have the minimum number of mics on stage as possible to deliver a cleaner sound for a bunch of various reasons that I'm not going to go into right now. It gets very complex, but yeah, a musical is much more complicated and takes a lot of practice. Whereas a straight play, usually if it's an unamplified straight play, sometimes you're just pushing a button. Instead of having your hands, instead of being an octopus with 8 or 10 fingers moving at volumes all at the same time.
So sound designers are octopuses. That's my main takeaway from today.
Yeah. Well, that would actually be the engineers. Yeah,
sure. Sound engineers. Thank you so much for coming and joining the workshop series today, Paul, and for all of the wonderful examples that we got to have that I know took a lot of preparation. So before you head out, do you want to do a little one-word wrap-up, one word to describe how you're feeling about the whole workshop and being done with it now?
Relieved.
Fair enough.
This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
I'm glad. It was really fun to have you on. So my one word would probably be grateful. It tends to be grateful at the end of these workshops with all these wonderful people coming on. So thank you so much, Paul, and we hope to see you soon.
Yep. Bye.
So if you're at home and if you want to support free, accessible online theater programming like this, you can head to the link in our caption to be part of our fundraising efforts during this time. And also definitely don't forget to check out the links that Paul has curated for further learning in the Behind the Curtain Technical Assistance group. The link for that is in the caption of this video. So thank you so much to Paul Peterson. Thank you to Rachel Pimenez Moreno, and tune in tomorrow for Community Voices, which is playwriting at 3 p.m. right here on the Old Globe Arts Engagement. Thank you all so much for joining. It was lovely to be with you. Take care.